This is At the Extremes.
Beloved. I hit my that's my Mariah Carey era. Welcome back to At the Extremes, beloveds. This is the podcast where we discuss the extremes in our society and how we got here. As always, we are your hosts. I'm Greg.
And I'm Sergio.
And today, Sergio, we are going to be wrapping up our series. Can you believe we've gotten here?
Man,
it's been a while.
We are just trucking along. It just seems like yesterday.
We're blasting through episodes right now. I feel like Arsenal versus Liverpool, Saka blasting a ball through the net and then coming up on a draw. Well, how do you feel about that right now?
I mean, I guess coming up on the draw in the sense that this is just super depressing stuff, and we're not in the negative, but it's still not positive.
So Sergio, I don't even know where we left off. We were left off talking.
Sorry,
about
audience. We were talking about Mariah Carey, and we're just going down the rabbit hole. How awesome Mariah Carey was, and if for the younger generation, go back to, but just her range of vocals.
Oh my God, yeah.
Maybe
her
this,
high note.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say maybe this is hyperbolic, but I would say she was comparable to Whitney Houston.
Are you serious? Oh my God, Sergio. He's put his hands up and then he lit two middle fingers and he was just like, yeah, this is serious. Are you serious right now? You think she's comparable to Whitney?
With the high note.
So we're going to go to break, and while we're doing that, I'm going to talk to Sergio. I can't believe you. I'm going to spank your bottom after saying that.
Daddy's coming home and spanking you.
Daddy's going to spank your bottom. We're back. I am going to play you a song, Sergio, if that's okay. Can I do that for you? It's not Mariah, but it's the best I have.
Oh, we'll do this. My mic is off. There we go.
Oh, sorry. My apologies. Go.
Oh, let's see. This is what happens. You go against what the regime says, and then you just get your microphone cut.
Yep. This is what happens when you fight the power.
Well, no, you're not the power. You're the light. That's your cult that we're starting, and we're all gonna join.
If it's up to me, everyone's going to be joining this. Sergio, I'm going to play you this song real quick, if that's all right. I'm only going to play 30 seconds of it, though, if that's all right.
There's nothing left but the fire in my chest and the air that fills my lungs. I'll hold my tears and trade my ears for a glimpse at kingdom come. On the other side of misery, there's a world we long to see. The strife we share will take us there to relief and sovereignty. Oh, by God, we'll have our home again. By God, we'll have our home. By blood or sweat, we'll get there yet. By God, we'll have our home.
So, Sergio, that is a group by the name of Pine Tree Riots. They are a white supremacy group that writes songs and also...
That's disappointing. That was a little catchy. And
so, fun fact, that's an old fisherman song. So it's like an old sailor song that they play, but they play it at their rallies. And so it's like a calling card of sorts. So the "We'll Have Our Home Again" thing is about very specifically the Pacific Northwest, very much the Redoubt, very much a white only home again kind of thing. So it is a hate music group that has put their stuff out on YouTube in coded language, so to speak. So it is definitely something that is.
Didn't you send me something? Wasn't Rammstein? We were talking about hate coded, but is Is Rammstein neo-Nazi or are they not?
No, they are socialists. Like
They're social. Okay.
Yeah, they're socialists who believe that Nazis should be like dragged out into the street and many bad things should happen to them.
Okay. But I also thought that they were accused of Du Hasmich was like
They were accused, yes, and then they put out like an explicitly like ultra leftist song, and then like came up with like a couple of albums about being that's not who we are. So
Okay.
yeah.
Good. So I can
You can listen to Rammstein again.
So when I go to the gym next time, Du Hasmich.
Oh boy. So I was looking at the Southern Poverty Law Center, and all the groups like that we've been talking up to about till now, pagans, the Christo-fascists, the preppers, the tortured writers, they're all like listening to this kind of music. And we've talked about these groups with disapproval and disgust here in the last couple of episodes, but we're going to take the gloves off for this episode, Sergio. At least I am. And we're going to start calling them for what they are: fascists, Nazis, hucksters, snake oil salesmen. Like, they're the worst of all of our impulses. These people are fucking terrible.
Tricksters, hooligans.
Yeah. Wankers, bellends, the whole lot in it.
Fuckwads.
So these are the folks. I would like to point you back to the song we just heard, though, for a second, if I could. That song, like I mentioned, was an old sailor song.
Well, it sounds like almost like a Union song.
Yeah, it's very. You could also almost, like, if you think about it in the right atmosphere, hear that at a sporting event, like especially like a soccer or like maybe a rugby, like, very European kind of sport. But like you can almost hear that in your head, right? So the Pine Tree Riots is a nod back to 1772 when a rebellion in New Hampshire happened. Long story short, the British, they decided they wanted to start taxing trees. So like, I think it was like white pine. And if you cut down a white pine, they tax you for it. If you process that white pine, they taxed you for it. So like, if you're in New England, you hit a white pine every time you turn the corner. Like, it was just everywhere. So like, you couldn't avoid it. And it was one of the bigger complaints that the colonists cited during the American Revolution. And you might ask, why does this matter? Well, much like the Tea Party of more recent times of the early 2000s and to today, they see themselves as a revolutionary, like, Americana throwback. So like, these are the guys who are like
the old Notre Dame fighting Irish.
They're doing the thing with their fists.
The old school boxing style.
Yeah, like they think that they're trying to like overthrow their oppressors. The thing is, like many revolutionary Americans, these guys are also racist as fuck. Like they really just hate anyone who isn't a white dude.
Irish need not apply.
Yeah, seriously. The Pine Tree Riots, they combine something in the Redoubt that I care quite a bit about, and that is the environment. They do a good job about combining that with a philosophical idea and a tactical idea, and that is the environment meets fascism, and they call that eco-fascism, which was a pretty new idea to me up until about a couple of months ago when I started looking into this stuff. And it combines my two favorite, one of my passions.
Fascism, man.
My first passion is fascism, as everyone knows. But my first passion being the environment. And the other thing about this that I really actually hate the most is racism. The idea of looking at the economy through an environmentalist eyes. Like, what do we have to do to protect the environment while still also having a market that we can participate in, while making sure that we are doing no harm, right? I am 100% sure of this, though. Eventually, climate change will be claimed by the right, and they will do what they're doing today.
Claimed in what regards? What do you mean by that? So
I think that you're already seeing this a little bit. So what the right is doing, and they do it really, really well. They actually
they don't do anything well. Fuck those guys.
The problem is they do a lot right, or not
alt-right.
Ding dong.
Oh,
bing bong. What they do so well is they are really good about providing a situation in which it's impossible to ignore them. And what the right will do eventually, because they've already started doing this thing, is claiming environmental catastrophe. I want to read something to you from the DW, a German publication. Quote, in one notorious example, the Attorney General of the U.S. state of Arizona, having previously misrepresented climate science, cited environmental protection when he sued the Biden administration for loosening immigration laws. He claimed that the Latin American migrants would use up resources, cause emission problems, and pollute the environment if they weren't able to build the wall between us and Mexico. Right?
That's a really flat argument.
Oh, incredibly so. So is most of what fascism claims, right? But like, this is what they're trying to do already. What I'm saying, I guess, is, and after we read this piece about Marie Le Pen, you'll understand even more.
Oh, the French.
In Europe, Marie Le Pen invoked climate change and environmental protections in her nationalist campaigns. If you don't know who Marie Le Pen is when you're listening to this podcast, understand that the French are really good about revolutions, and they're also really good about like hate. And somehow Marie Le Pen has combined those two things. So,
Yeah.
So along with her, there's a party in Germany called the AfD, and they're the far right in Germany. And they have claimed and called on their party to embrace climate change as an effective recruiting measure. Basically, the idea is Malthusianism. Do you know about Malthus?
I know that's a huge word right now, and I'm just like, all right, bro.
So I
have a history major.
I got a degree in history, and I minored in logic in community college. So you're welcome for that.
Yeah.
Community college, by the way, go to community college. It's a really cool place to be.
It is one of the best. You know what?
It's one of the best institutions we have in our country. It's like the library system.
And it's way cheaper than four-year universities. You have really awesome, dedicated professors that are there. It's smaller classes, and you can figure out all your basic classes first, and then you can go into a major.
I had a lot of friends make fun of me for going to community college first.
Best decision of my life.
Quite literally. You went to community college too?
Yes, I got my AA.
Hell yeah, dude. And what?
In AA General Studies. No, so I got my major in undergrad is recreation and leisure studies.
Hell yeah, I remember you told me this,
Yeah.
but you got your AA and AA general studies.
Yeah, just general studies. I just knocked out all my stuff. They didn't have
smart.
Yeah,
Smart.
So I knocked off all my Spanish, English, all that stuff.
I did.
In community college.
I did ASL, American Sign
No
Language.
fucking way.
Beer, wine. Only two things I remember.
That's awesome.
Quite literally the only two things I remember. It's paid off once. Literally only once.
I mean,
Beer, wine.
you got your degree in it, and it paid off.
Oh, no. I didn't get a degree in that. I just took a class so I could
okay.
get my foreign language credit.
Hell yeah.
Dude, but it was awesome. I didn't learn much of anything. It was at 7:00 at night, and it was with a bunch of old people. And I was like, what am I fucking doing here? They're like, I had to get up and like do my name in sign language and stuff. And I was like, listen.
Could you do the alphabet now?
I could get you to about like L.
Well, I'm not going to go
This is
sign
really,
because it's
really
not
good
great.
for podcasting.
Yeah. We're going to do a podcast sign language. Please give us 5 stars.
This is a new concept, sign language podcasting.
Guess what we're potting about?
You get to guess. I'm leaving all that in. Oh boy.
Yeah, community colleges are awesome.
Yeah, I love community college. Anyway, so back to Marie Le Pen. So everything that these folks believe in terms of ecofascism is rooted in something called the Malthus philosophy or Malthusianism. The idea is this, more or less: the supply of food cannot keep up with the growth of human population, inevitably resulting in disease, famine, war, and calamity. Malthus, while thought-provoking, is a dipshit.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. when you talk about things like,
Hold on. As
Yeah.
we pause really quick,
Please do.
This is, and I have no data to back it up, so this is just ranting bullshit
love rant.
from me. But as you look overall in the populations, there's a lot of populations that are actually decreasing by a lot. France, the United States, overall, when we're having a declining population. And so I don't believe that there's this scarcity of food and all this stuff, because everything I feel like balances out at some point. And then also this whole point that they have to admit that climate change is really a thing, and within our country, there's still a lot of people that are trying to get those words taken out of education.
Sergey, you make a really sound, well-developed, introspective, balanced thought there. But I want to hit you over that with something even more balanced, if I could, for a second.
Please.
First and foremost, Malthus would say that you're an idiot.
I mean, he's not wrong.
I mean, no, he is wrong, and I'll tell you why. Before our population as a global, the global population expanded and blew up, and modernization developed, easier ways for people to fuck and get pregnant and blah 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 blah. The first famine that was recorded in the Roman Empire was done in 441, well before our population density got there. World continued to go on, and there was a bunch of bad things that happened, but people kept on fucking. That's what we do. The folks who lived in the region that would become France basically lived under famine-like conditions between the years of 779 and 793 BC. Those were all disease deaths. People died from disease exclusively. Not exclusively, but mostly. There were quite a few people who died during that period of time. If I'd like to highlight something called the 1918 Spanish flu. Remember that piece? Yeah, you'd say that, Malthus got that wrong too, because we found a cure. Malthus is an idiot. The Black Plague, the plague of Justinian, which wiped out 60% of Europe, or the Hong Kong flu, or the Italian plague. We could literally go on forever. There are so many things here. What I'd like to highlight, though, is Malthus is a dick. A
racist one.
Yeah. If he looked up what diseases today look like, he would understand that the disease of excess, obesity, was the highest cause of deaths last year alone in terms of like modern countries. 2 million people died last year from being fucking obese last year alone. Malthus needs updating or being removed from philosophical thought altogether, in my opinion. Now, if you slap some racism on that pig, though, you will get something closer to what we're seeing in modern day politics. Eco-fascists advocate for particular solutions to the problem. Building a wall, for instance. Poisoning the blood of our country. Something like that. It's all great replacement.
It's a plague.
It's all great replacement bullshit, man. You're familiar enough with the idea that white people are going to become the global minority eventually. And that scares the fuck out of white people who think that black and brown people will do basically slavery. We're going like that they're going to reintroduce slavery somehow.
What is it? I mean, I know you don't have the stats on the board right now, but how do you think, like, globally speaking, as race is complicated, right? Because you've got multiracial families, stuff like that. But overall, what is the difference between like Asian, Southeast Asian, African, European, white? Like what are the I would be interested to just look and see what the breakdown is when it comes to all those numbers.
In terms of what?
And just in terms of just by population.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I imagine like by the numbers, white people have always been the minority.
I would have to think so too, right?
by the numbers, I'd imagine the white
Just
people have
between
literally
China and India right now, each having 1 billion.
right, and the fact that like you look at continental Africa all the way from continental Africa.
Oh, they have lions and shit.
Yeah, they're getting eaten alive. Yeah, man-eating lions are big.
And hippopotamuses.
Hippos, man-eating lions,
You just have grizzly bears.
cheetah.
No.
I mean,
No, they're not.
yeah, cheetah's a pretty elusive animal.
Fastest.
They are fast. Anyway, if you had to look at the numbers, yeah, would I say historically speaking, white people have always been the minority? Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I mean, like, there's no way that the Vikings and the Brits and the Franks and all that have been the dominating species on the planet. I like to think about this. So I was watching a clip of Bill Nye the Science Guy the other night.
I love me some Bill Nye.
Dude, Bill Nye's awesome.
From Seattle.
Hell yeah, Bill. Go on, fucking Billiam.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Bill.
Science rules.
Oh yeah, dude, he was such a cool guy. I remember that growing up. So he had this post that he put on X, Twitter, whatever, and it was like he showed 2 different graphs, and the first graph was a graph of the not the United States, but the world, and it was split up by UV, and it was the darker bands are where. This is where the most sun's concentrated, and as you go north and as you go south, like the sun becomes
The
less
equator,
concentrated,
yeah.
and all this other stuff. And as a result, as a species, if you look at like I don't know, the finch, there's different adaptations, but they're the same fucking bird, and that bird just had a bigger beak because of something that they need to get to or crack a different nut, but it's the same fucking bird. And if you look at like he peels back the next layer of that map and he goes, all right, so here's the different pigmentation levels based on that UV map. As you go further north, your skin becomes lighter because you need less protection from UV. As you get closer to the center of the map, you need more UV protection. That's why darker skin exists. So like there's this like whole like philosophy and understanding of this idea that like it's just all bullshit. So basically, Malthus argues that a country cannot sustain a population beyond its carrying capacity. The notion that a country cannot grow indefinitely, except if you're Trump or Vance or Musk or Wrangler Star, Doug, whatever, right? These guys argue that the Earth can carry many millions more than currently like occupy the planet right now, as long as that population is white.
This brings up just so many angry feelings towards me. The thought of just this is my country, this isn't your country. When we are founded as a country of immigrants, and actually we're the immigrants that are coming in on the Native Americans' land.
Yep.
Is the number one, but also to the extent that people have gone to get here and what they're trying to escape. Clearly, there's people that don't have the best intentions, are involved in cartels and stuff.
Sure,
but huge majority of people are escaping violence and things that they are trying to get away from to try to be successful. And why are we just excluding people from trying to be successful? Oh yeah, because their skin color isn't the skin color that we want.
Yeah.
Or their religion's not the one that we want.
And my thing that I always come back to, and I think I said something about this on our other show, Bang Time. I remember when I went to Texas a couple of months ago, or maybe I forget if it was the last time or whatever, but I was in El Paso and I saw a migrant woman being pushed up against a fence with her children in her hands, in her arms. And I remember thinking to myself, this isn't okay. Whatever your stance is on immigration, whatever it is, That's not okay. When someone looks like they're being Terminator pressed through something so they can come out on the other side of that thing in the hole, that is unacceptable. Whatever we're doing, whatever that means in the end, whatever policy gets passed, that's not okay. And until we stop seeing each other as illegal, as humans.
Or aliens.
Yeah. That's a problem.
It's a huge problem.
It's a huge problem. Anyway, let's move on to another organization in the great Pacific Northwest in the Redoubt region. We're going to talk about something called the Patriot Front. And this is going to move us a little closer to current day. As I'm sure you've heard of the Patriot Front, they are an organization that has spread from the Redoubt area to my own community. So these folks, man, like if you know the KKK, they've got like the hoods over their faces, like to hide themselves. Well, these folks, they do the same thing, but they just basically put like spandex on their face. They're like bad bank robbers. Like when you would dress up with your mom's like pantyhose, and you stretch them over your head. This is these folks, except they're just in really bad COVID covers over their faces. So yeah, these guys in the Patriot Front, you know, they're just the modern day KKK in my opinion. But I want to look at them a little deeper, right? So I thought to myself, like during January 6th, which by the way is where all of this came from, right? Like the whole point of this podcast is January the 6th. Like, how did we get to January 6th? And there are so many different components in it, but one of the main things that I took from it was like all like the mini groups that made up the right in that moment. And I had to look all the way back to 2017 in Charlottesville. And that's where
we got some good guys on both sides.
We have a lot of good guys on both sides. And he definitely gave them a lot of shine during that period of time. But these guys in the Patriot Front, they come to Charlottesville, Virginia that weekend. Not only did racist Nazis beat up and kill people, but they destroyed property. These thugs. Anyway, so the front comes out of an internal dispute between leaders during the Unite the Right movement that was happening in Charlottesville. Again, proving there will always be an out group, right? Like it doesn't matter. Like if you're a hate monger, if you're some peaceful protester, if you're a socialist, or if you're an anarchist who believes that there should be no organized grouping, there will always be an out group because humans do what we do. I find a flower not a flower. It was definitely not a flower. It was a flyer on a local
flower on the flyer.
Yeah. Well, I wish I had put one on there. Instead, I took a shit on it. So it was a flyer that was on a local walking trail in my community, and it said "Join the Front." And it felt like I was in 1947 America, in the middle of like Kentucky, where they were talking about join the Klan. Ugh. And I was walking my dog and my best friend of all time, and we're walking along the trail, and I see something that says "Join the Front," and I took a picture of it, and I tweeted at the time. You could still tweet now, you X or whatever it is. I could tweet at my local county representative, and I let them know that there was a white supremacy group growing in their area in our county. And I was met with dismissal. I got turned away by the county executives, my local representative, all of that shit. And I was told that our community is not like that. And you've driven up here. You've seen it. It's like that.
It is.
Days later, the council president, the county executive, and many of the county representatives would put out a statement saying that the county that I live in currently is not a home to hate. So they found out about it, dismissed me out of hand, and then decided that they were going to put out some public statement. Now, I don't know about you, but when I put out a statement, no one seems to follow that statement. We put out a statement every single week, and the country, our counties are still exactly the same, right? Like, it doesn't matter. It's bullshit. It's a nice sentiment, but like the rest of America, we're not giving these groups the attention they deserve. If they were Al-Qaeda, if they were brown-skinned Americans, we would be saying like, oh my God, like the Black Panthers need to be, I don't know, gassed and bombed in Philadelphia.
Yeah. That's mind-blowing. I mean, it's not because of the county that you live in, but it's just wild. And when you were talking about January the 6th, I was just kind of, the hamster was running on the wheel, and I was just thinking in my young 42 years of life how fucking insane it is to think that we had a mob of people attack the United States Capitol. We're going to hang a vice president, and that we didn't do. I'm not a big fan of government crackdowns, but why we didn't do a government crackdown and just immediately everybody jump on board and say like, hey, this isn't okay. This isn't cool. We had Lindsey Graham say, oh, this is enough. And then his back slobbering on Trump's balls. And what the fuck? Like, we're catering to small majority of people. Well, I don't know how small it is, but hopefully a small majority of people that continue to have so much power in this country that can do something like that. I mean, just imagine if it was a group of black people, a mob of black people, or a mob of Hispanics that were coming in, or Latinos. Hundreds of people would have been killed on the streets. And it's one of, I mean, we have a lot of really, really disheartening and sad days, but within my timeline or my time frame in life here, it is one of the wildest things if you just think about that day and what happened and where we're still at, where it's not that Donald Trump said it was a day of love.
Yeah. There aren't words that I can add, genuinely. Not words that are going to add anything. You know what I mean? Like it's a hard thing to balance.
Remember where you were at that point. I was at my in-laws' house and I was watching the shit and I was just like, what the fuck is going on? What? And then my immediate thought was like, oh, if it was black people, they would have been shot, and nothing happened. And they didn't even. It took so long for police to get out there and to be able to disperse the crowd. They let the shit happen for a long time.
Yeah, I think about that way too often. I think so. I've had some people ask me like, "Oh, Greg, why did you decide that you wanted to do something like this?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I've had a lot written up about a lot of different things, and I want to explore a couple of different ideas, but a lot of that stuff came after January the 6th, and I had to think about like the mythology that we're taught. And it's a mythology. We're taught a mythology about our nation, and we're taught about a mythology about like revolutionary America all the way through
like the Tea Party, right? When they dressed up as Native Americans and were throwing tea off the side and like, fuck.
Even then, they couldn't be brave enough to like stand up and do the thing. They had to dress up as Native Americans so they could out another group instead of being like standing up and saying like, no, we as white men don't believe that what you're doing is okay. They had to dress up as a Native American so that they could even like pass on the blame to somebody else in their moment of being angry.
The original blackface.
Quite literally.
It's not funny, but it's
it's funny because it's true. So you described it to me, and I want to hit you with this real quick.
And you had some very but you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that.
So I remember watching that happen live on TV and thinking to myself, what's happening? Mm-hmm. Like, I just saw someone get ran over by a car.
And killed.
Murdered on the street. And I've got the leader of the, quote, free world telling me that there were some fine people on both sides.
Walking down the street and saying Jews will not replace us.
Right. Fighting everyone they could find and trying to harm everyone that was standing in their way of getting to a statue. Because white men who believe that the South shall rise again think that the statues of a fucking miserable cunt, and I say that with all intent and purposes, traitor, an absolute traitor. They decided that that's worth fighting for.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's move on a little forward here. So the movement that the folks from the Patriot Front were born from, I'm going to give you a quote here. This is their own words. The hard truth of the coming struggle, we've heard that before from Cody, is that America as we know it is already dead or will not survive. This age of our people will instead be seen as an era of rebirth in the beginning of a new chapter in history. What will live on are the people that will make up the possible, the identity they share, the heritage they will bring forth in the new age. The errors of past societies and governments shall be left behind, only brought to light as reminders of the folly of our people and led to the brink of dissolution. I don't know about you, but like when I was reading it and I was typing it up, I was getting angrier and angrier and angrier, and I had to step away from researching for a couple of hours. Like it made me angry. We've been talking about this like air of racism, of misogyny, of Western expansionism, of America First mentality kind of thing for a really long time now. For a couple of months now, we've been talking about this.
Oh, and it's been a theme for the last 16 years too, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, like
or 12 years.
Oh, well, even longer than that, right? Like if you look back throughout the history of this country, that's what it's always been about. And I would dare anybody who wants to have that conversation to come onto the show or sharing it with us on Twitter. But, I think about that and I go, okay, let me take a lap around the block real quick because I'm going to get angry when I hear that kind of thing. And I want to do a real quick connection here with you if I can. These dickheads, they got busted in Idaho, which is what we've been talking about recently, right? Like the Great American Redoubt. They got busted in Idaho a couple years back. In 2022, the city of Coeur d'Alene, excuse me, they were hosting an annual Pride Festival. And this is from NPR, from their local NPR station. Meanwhile, less than a mile away, an anti-LGBTQ group gathered to pray the Catholic Rosary, led by a self-identifying Christian nationalist, and attended by affiliates of the White Nationalist America First movement. So the White Nationalist America First movement. Also nearby, a motorcycle riding club event encouraged its members and allies to gather with firearms at an LGBTQ festival. Also nearby, a motorcycle riding club event encouraged its members and allies to gather with firearms and take a stand against the Pride gathering. Idaho does not require a permit to carry or a license or to carry open firearms. The article continues. During the Pride event, where children were at, by the way, they were blowing bubbles and drawing colorful chalk art under sheltered picnic pavilions. An enthusiastic crowd cheered drag queens performing on stage. Not my thing, but hey, look, whatever. Who gives a shit, right? You're in Idaho, the land of the free, the home of the brave.
And if you don't like it, you don't have to go.
Yeah, you literally don't have to be there. Opposition was visibly present, though. Several men carrying long guns and handguns walked around throughout the crowd. A conservative Christian group assembled at a picnic table nearby and sang religious songs. No one asked you to be there. At one point, several men, including one with a long gun and pistol, unfurled a banner and propagated a false narrative about harming children that has recently united far-right groups and movements against the LGBTQ community. And those probably being about them being, I don't know, groomers.
31 members of a white supremacist group allegedly plotting to riot at a pride event up in Idaho. They were discovered Saturday, packed into the back of a U-Haul truck, all wearing similar clothing and white face coverings. Police were tipped off by somebody who saw these guys loading masks and shields into a truck and told the police that they looked like a little army. The men are reportedly members of the Patriot Front. This is a white nationalist group, and we're heading to an LGBTQ pride event to riot.
So we're going to keep this train moving, this hate train moving, because these guys are just they're scary. But there's another hate group that came out of the Redoubt region that really picked up steam significantly in the rest of the country, called the Proud Boys. You're familiar with these boys, right?
Oh, the Proud Boys.
Let's hear it for the boys. Let's hear it for the boys. Let's give it to them. Yeah. Actually, before we started the show, I sent myself a little message. I want to show you this to you because you're familiar with their colors, right?
Yellow and black, right?
Yeah. What did Donald Trump wear 2 nights ago at a town hall in Michigan? Tell us what he's wearing.
Black and yellow, black and yellow.
Black and yellow, black and yellow. You know what it is. So my dude pulls up to Michigan after not being there for 3 hours because he was recording with Joe Rogan. I've watched a little bit of that, by the way. He's so dumb.
Does Joe Rogan, I haven't listened to it yet, does he
No.
challenge him at all?
No.
So he just let him just have a
He
platform?
lets him have his way, man. If Kamala goes on there, she's fucking ruined. If I were her, I would not go. Like, everyone's calling for her to go. I wouldn't. He's going to come after her hard. So Trump showed Rogan his ear, and Rogan's like, "Oh, where's the scar?" He's like, "It's over here. It zinged me," or some bullshit. And like Rogan just keeps on going with it. So, I like I was saying earlier, we've talked about our Patriot boys. Let's talk about the Proud Boys. So from the Southern Poverty Law Center, all right. And this is red flag number 1. They were established in the midst of the 2016 presidential election by Vice Media co-chair and co-founder Gavin McInnes. We've talked about him in the past. The Proud Boys are self-described, quote, Western chauvinists who adamantly deny any connection with the racist alt-right. They insist that they are simply a fraternal group spreading anti-political correctness and anti-white guilt agenda. That's their whole platform. But the SPLC goes a little further to show that the boys just aren't what they say they are. And this is a quote directly from the Proud Boys. "The true minority in this world are whites. White children are less than 3% of the world's population. I think since white majority countries are on the pathway, actually, let's read this in Trump's voice real quick, because I think this fits even more. While white children are less than 3% of the world's population, I think it's since white majority countries are on the pathway to extinction, we should correctly refer to them as their true name, a worldwide minority." So he writes majority in the script in his quote, but he meant minority because he's a dumb racist piece of shit. He couldn't even get that right.
What? And the Proud Boys too, but wasn't there the guy that was in charge of it was Cuban, right? for a while.
Yep. But he was also an FBI informant.
Oh, was he? Terrio or whatever?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. He was an informant. Yeah, he was selling them out the entire time. He's like fighting for his life in jail right now, as he should be. He's a piece of shit.
I feel like,
You can be an informant and still be like part of that movement. You could just be selling out to the FBI because you think you're going to get a better deal.
Oh, so he wasn't like an implant that was going in there.
No. He was somebody who was like true to the movement who got bought out. He's a piece of shit.
Oh, okay. So he sold out. So he's a rat.
Yeah, he's a rat. He's a scab and he's a racist. So like, what's worse?
That's so funny.
So some more comments from our dick-faced, dick-fingered fuckhead, Gavin McInnes. Quote, I just realized something. Cory Booker, who, by the way, is the senator from New Jersey.
And a Rhodes Scholar and really fucking smart guy.
Turns out he's a Sambo. He's kind of like a Sambo. You could hear Donald saying that. He's kind of shucking and jiving for the white man. Cory Booker grew up rich in an all-white suburb. He's basically a white guy. His parents were very wealthy executives at IBM. So, again, whiteness is closer to success than blackness is, right? That's like the idea here. Just wanted to pause and say that.
What?
If you're a successful executive at IBM, you're basically a white guy.
I mean, I understand.
I know you know that.
I understand what you're saying, but there's so many. Well, I mean, you and I both know.
Well, racism can't be understood.
Yes, it's just you. So you can't. If you're a successful person of color, you're more white.
You're basically white. Might as well be. But, continuing the quote here, but he wants to be a black dude. So he pretends that he's down with the brothers and he acts outraged about racism all the time for white people. That gets him votes from the whites. Gavin McInnes, just so you know, Gavin, you'll never hear this, so I want you to know, I think you should.
The thing that I think I mean, I don't know anything about Gavin McInnes, but is he kind of like a Stephen Miller that we don't know if he is just pure chaos and just trying to troll everybody, or if he's just an out and out just racist piece of shit?
I think he's just an out and out racist piece of shit. I mean, like I've listened to a lot of his like modern day stuff, and he's just a racist piece of shit. We were talking off air about like dark alleyway meetings, and he would be a part of my dark alleyway meeting if I had one. I want to read you something from a Reuters article from this summer, if I can. And so I used to go to, when I was a kid, my parents used to take us to a place called Wildwood, New Jersey, for family vacations. They've got 3 water parks. They've got multiple roller coasters. They've got convention centers. They've got an incredible boardwalk full of incredible treats. I'm talking pizza, hot dogs with sauerkraut, mustard, whatever you want. An excellent place to get a hot dog. Best hot dog on the East Coast. I'm not going to say it, but I'm going to say it. It's called Snow White Hot Dogs. Best place on the East Coast for a hot dog. They've also got an incredible amount of racists there. Turns out that Donald Trump was like, you know what's a good place to go for a fucking rally? Wildwood, New Jersey. Bop, bop, bop. So he ends up in Wildwood. Here's a quote from it. The reemergence of the Proud Boys at Trump's political rallies and events coincides with polls showing a majority of Americans fearing political violence will flare around November's elections. It also comes when Trump's use of incendiary rhetoric is inspiring his supporters to target his opponents, including judges, prosecutors, and political rivals, in a wave of threats that's unprecedented in modern American politics. Trump himself has not ruled out the possibility of political violence if he loses in November. Quote, if he doesn't win, if we don't win, it depends, he said when asked by Time magazine in April. If he expected violence after the election. If he's jailed or put under house arrest, he says this, quote, I'm not sure the public would stand for it. He said that in a Fox News interview. At a certain point, there's a breaking point, he said. Reading a more recent article from October 10th from Reuters, political violence is at its highest since it started tracking this data in the 1970s. And according to its research, Reuters, they've identified over 300 cases of political violence since 2021, which is pretty fucking insane. That's 100 cases of just political violence every year, Sergio.
Yeah.
Back to our story, though. You see, if you look at back in history, and I'm a historian, well, not a historian, but I got my degree in history. And I do believe that history is a precursor for future events. I do firmly believe that. If we look back at World War II, for instance, and we look at Benito Mussolini's rise in Italy during World War II, when the Italians were at their highest power outside of the Roman Empire, when they were failing in Somalia. Because the Italians, they're great. They're great people. They've got amazing pasta. When Italy went full fascist, Mussolini had a fighting division too, right? They were called the Black Shirts. I found an interesting podcast, of all places, Rick Steves. You familiar with Rick Steves?
No.
So Rick Steves, he's a guy. So my wife and I traveled to Europe over 10 years ago now for a wedding. We went to Italy we were in Cinque Terre, we were in Genoa, we were in Rome, we were in all these beautiful places. And we ended up in this place called Montepulciano. Beautiful, beautiful
God,
place.
I love the accent on that.
Montepulciano.
Oh.
Si buono, che buono.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Beautiful place. Fantastic. Food is amazing. The walled city is incredible. It's a great place. Rick Steve is so popular. He's an American from the Pacific Northwest. He's from Seattle. He's an amazing American who advocates for weed legalization, socialized healthcare. He travels the world. He's been in Rome during the changeover from popes. He's been in Mecca during Ramadan. Like, he's somebody who's incredibly well-traveled as an American, and he has all these books and incredible insights about, like, if you want to go from, let's say, Berlin to Augsburg over the weekend, here are the places that you should stop at and the restaurants you should go to. Incredibly useful
like an
resource.
Anthony
Bourdain, but even better, in my opinion. Ooh. Yeah, Bourdain's an amazing individual. Rick Steves is better, my opinion. Okay. Just my opinion. But he has a podcast series where they were talking about this. And Rick Steves' Travels blog is where I found this information, and I became even more concerned. From a deep discussion they were having on fascism and how it grew in the Eternal City. Quote, this is from one of the podcasters. What I understand now is that it was like a collective dream. It was hypnosis. Standing in the crowd of thousands of people, all focused on one man, who was terrific using his body, his facial expressions, his language, to reach to their hearts. They were going ballistic, even for a hand gesture or a facial expression. Mussolini was an actor. And when he eventually showed up in that window and stood in his typical posture with his arms crossed. I mean, have you ever seen that, like that image of Mussolini where he's got his arms crossed? Imagine that, but like doing this with his hands, like
an accordion?
Yeah. And when he eventually showed up in that window, when he stood in that typical posture, with his imposing chin for Italians, he was the personification of a greater Italy. He promised an Italy that would be great, that would be modern, that would finally be unified, where there would be work for everybody. Mussolini came to power through intimidation, resentment, and taking advantage of the peoples that he left behind. Much like Caesar, when he crossed the Rubicon, he took the city from the people that were controlling that city. They gave it over to him. Fascism doesn't exist, Sergio, without state-sponsored and state-encouraged violence from a charismatic leader. The Proud Boys are Trump's black shirts. I don't see them as anything other than his potential hit squad, killing and terrorizing political enemies. And those communities that the Proud Boys already have gone out of their way to harass, with Trump in office, back in the White House, and several landmark decisions by the Supreme Court, it will be much harder to stop that this time around. I'm getting really angry.
Yeah, me too.
I think it's time for us to take a quick break.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Sergio, we've had Pearl Harbor. We've had the moon landing. We've had the Kennedy assassination, 9/11, COVID-19. And we finally had January the 6th. It was time. It was going to happen, right? These are all moments that will live in our memory and in our lore as Americans for eternity.
That will live in infamy.
Yeah. The day that will live in infamy. I mean, like, what was it? That was the
Pearl Harbor.
That was Pearl Harbor, and then there was the Hindenburg, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the histories around January 6th will continue to be written, as we've talked about, for the next couple of generations. And of course, because we lived it, we have to talk about it, right? Like we started talking about it earlier. J6, as we're going to call it, was the result of decades worth long effort by hate groups, militias, fringe politicians, radio hosts like Rush Limbaugh, and most recently, social media influencing campaigns like Cody. They're there. They're doing their thing to try to overthrow. So is Sergio. He's doing his best to
Trying to overthrow the microphone as I bang it with my elbow.
So, these folks, they were all trying to do their very best to overthrow the government and any and all progressive politics and policies that have been enacted. Everything we've talked to up till now has been a part of this radicalization that has led to the literal Confederate flag waving inside the fucking goddamn Capitol building. A CSA's wet dream finally came true in 2020. I want to revisit something. We talked about...
I really wish you'd stop revisiting things.
Yeah, I know. I'm really sorry.
You're not, though.
He's looking at me with like those big doughy eyes. I'm just like, man,
Big social work.
Come on, do we really have to process this again?
Can we not talk about that? Can we not?
Just suppress it.
I've been doing it for a long time. I say it again. I've been processing for a while. So everything we've been talking about, like I said, has been leading up to this moment. We've had the Confederate flag floating waving around in the air inside the Capitol building. It was so close to DC, to the Capitol, closer than it ever got during the Civil War. It never got that close, ever. And then it ended up in the fucking goddamn. But like, I remember waking up and like going through my work day and seeing that happen and going, what am I looking at? What is? I remember 9/11, waking up going, oh, it's a movie. It's got to be a movie. There's no way that's real.
Yeah.
And then the Pentagon get hit, and then COVID-19 happened, and then January 6th happened, and I'm going, this is like an Independence Day movie that I'm living in, right? Like, there's no way this is real life.
Yeah.
This can't be real. It can't be.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
So anyway, they get themselves into into the hallowed halls of Congress, and they start flying this flag, and it's called the Appeal to Heaven flag. And the Appeal to Heaven flag, Sergio, has got a gigantic pine tree on it, and it's what we were talking about at the very beginning of the episode. It's an appeal to heaven, and an appeal to heaven that New Hampshire made when they were talking about overthrowing the British government. And I cannot, after seeing that happen on the Capitol grounds, I remember seeing it and going, that's not normal. That shouldn't be there. I remember because I got my degree in history, and I remember what they were doing during that period of time going, no. They were fighting a tyrant. They were fighting a tyrant. They were fighting a government that wasn't anywhere close to them, to tax them for cutting down a tree to build boats or to feed their family. And thinking to myself, holy shit, we're now the Tea Party times 2. We're at Tea Party times 2 now.
Well, didn't Samuel Alito have the appeal to heaven flag floating outside his house?
With upside down American flag.
Yeah.
Absolutely, which is a distress sign.
Yeah, and it's
What's what you fly when you're under distress as an American naval
officer. And I think that's really scary again, as you have the head of the Supreme Court flying that flag at his New Jersey residence.
Yes.
Old Sam.
Yeah.
Fuck that guy.
And when there's a melee between Capitol Police and Trump supporters, all of a sudden they're forced to start opening. And again, I have zero empathy and sympathy for police officers when it comes to them unloading rounds and rounds and rounds of ammunition on leftists and killing people and taking them off the street off of Portland when they're fucking protesting police violence, and all they're doing is continuing the police violence by abducting people off the street. And then all of a sudden we're talking about, oh, well, we should be polite with these people. Oh, they're not going to do that again.
There's a lot of hypocrisy there.
The upside down American flags, the don't tread on me flags, the MAGA flags, the Confederate flag, the gallows that were placed outside of the Capitol steps. All of this shit is a symbol. It's a symbol that we've been talking about for weeks and months now. People are radicalized. They're at the extreme of this. Every single one of us saw with our two eyes. These symbols aren't by accident. They're purposeful. They're intentional, aggressive displays of defiance, hatred, violence, or as Trump would have us believe.
Very importantly, you had hundreds of thousands of people come to Washington. They didn't come because of me. They came because of the election. They thought the election was a rigged election, and that's why they came. Some of those people went down to the Capitol. I said peacefully and patriotically, nothing done wrong at all, nothing done wrong. And action was taken, strong action. Ashley Babbitt was killed. Nobody was killed. There were no guns down there. We didn't have
Except
guns.
for the 4 or 5 police officers
we
that
didn't have
died.
guns. And when I say we, these are people that walked down. This was a tiny percentage of the overall, which nobody sees and nobody shows. But that was a day of love from the standpoint of the millions. It's like hundreds.
So, yeah, a day of love. A day of love where people were dying, where people were getting stampeded over, where police officers, the guys who are supposed to quote unquote back the blue, are beating the shit out of the blue.
Fire hydrants taking their shields away from them and hitting them with them. Yeah.
Planting pipe bombs at the Democratic National Committee's headquarters. These are the people who believe that this is the right way. The thugs and terrorists who attacked the body politic that day have seen jail time dished out to them. Sure, of course they have, as individuals, and have put all of their hopes in a man who's willing to say things like this.
President, I would love to ask you about January 6th. You've called yourself the candidate of law and order. Yeah. When Time Magazine asked you if you would consider pardoning all the rioters, you said, yes, absolutely. Sure. You called them patriots. 140 police officers were assaulted that day. Their injuries included broken bones, at least one officer lost an eye, one had 2 cracked ribs, 2 smashed spinal discs, another had a stroke. Were the people who assaulted those 140 officers, including those I just mentioned, patriots who deserve pardons?
Well, let me bring it back to modern day. Like about 5 days ago, we had an attack on the Capitol, a horrible attack on the Capitol. You saw the people that were protesting and spraying these incredible monuments, bells, lions, all these magnificent limestone and granite with red paint, red spray paint that will never actually come off, especially in the limestone. It will never, I'm a builder, I know about this stuff. It'll never, you'll see it in 100 years from now. They viciously attacked our government. They fought with police. They fought with them much more openly than I saw on January 6th. What's going to happen to those people? What's going to happen to the people in Portland that destroyed that city?
But sir, my question is on those.
What's going to happen to
my
the people
question is
that
on
tried
those
to bring
rioters who assaulted officers.
You have to
would you pardon
what's
those
going to
people?
happen? Oh, absolutely, I would.
You
if
would
they're
pardon
innocent,
those.
If they're innocent, I would pardon them.
They've been convicted.
And by the way, the Supreme Court just under...
I mean,
They were convicted.
They were
and
convicted.
Then the crowd is laughing.
right, because they know that he's a fucking idiot. Boy, it's. I like to play for you a couple more clips if I can, Sergio. And I know that we've kind of bounced back and forth. And for those of you who aren't aware, we do more than one episode at a time. And we did our Halloween episode earlier today, and we played some some foosball. And we also watched the Arsenal draw. And so we're both in a pretty bad mood. We're both in a pretty bad mood.
Me worse, because I got destroyed in foosball.
Yeah, and I want to play a couple more clips that are going to make us even angrier, unfortunately. and I didn't know that Arsenal.
I have to drive home back to Baltimore.
I didn't know that Arsenal were going to draw today, and I didn't know this, so I do apologize for you, Sergio. But I'm going to play these next two clips. This is a man who's running for president.
But I protect you against outside enemies. But, you know, I always say we have the outside enemy, so you can say China, you can say Russia, you can say Kim Jong-un, you can say, but that's not, it's going to be fun. If you have a smart president, no problem. It's the enemy from within, all the scum that we have to deal with that hate our country. That's a bigger enemy than China and Russia.
China. This is a guy who wants to be a dictator. And I think when I was watching January 6th and I was watching throwback clips to Cody and I was watching the Greg Locks of the world and the Liberty Universities of the world and these people who at first, when I started watching Cody, like we've said before, it was a guy who started with a fucking YouTube channel, a chainsaw, and that was it. That was it.
And it morphed to what it was.
And then it morphed quite literally into this.
But this is how you start a war band. You're going to find 3 or 4 capable men in your neighborhood. You're going to make a blood oath with them. You will come to their aid. They will come to your aid no matter what. You're going to go to the gun store and you're going to buy a Daniel Defense DDM4 V7. You're going to put a Surefire X300 light on it and Daniel Defense fixed sights. If you're gay, leave the furniture on that comes with it. If you're not, buy an LMT SOP mod stock. You're going to contact this man right here, Evan. Radio Made Easy. You're going to buy 3 digital radios. They're going to be pre-programmed for you, for your area. You're going to learn how to use them. And you will bring this, and you will bring your rifle in any situation that arises, and you will promise one another, no matter what, you'll have each other's back. That's how you start a war band, and that's how it begins.
What did he say? If you're gay, you'll...
Yeah.
Cody just has... I felt sorry for him at some points, but he's just not a really likable guy.
He's a terrible human being.
He sucks.
He should meet the end that he deserves.
Or just get lots of gonorrhea in his eyeballs.
I mean, I think that's what he deserves. So, Sergio, we kind of talked about it a little earlier, but like, what was your, like, January 6th happens and you're with your family, you're with your friends, like you're hanging out, you're watching the Capitol burn. Like, what's going on? Like, what are you guys thinking?
I think the thing that just kept going into my mind is, I can't believe this is fucking happening. Like, why aren't these people, why isn't tear gas being, deployed and dispersing all these people? And for me, was just, again, then my other thoughts were, if this was people of color, what would be happening right now? And just like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And it was crazy. And the more you watched it and how they were, you saw the interruption of the certifying the election and people running away. It was just like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And it's just, what's going on?
So I want to play another clip for you because Trump said this too.
Save America. Get your friends, get your family, get everyone you know, and vote. Vote early, vote absentee, vote on election day. I don't care how, but you have to get out and vote. And again, Christians, get out and vote.
You'll never have to vote again.
You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. Get out. You got to get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good you're not going to have to.
We'll have it fixed so good you won't have to vote again. A lot of people say things like, "Oh, Greg, Sergio, when you call someone a Nazi, there's no room for debate. When you call someone racist, you aren't looking for a debate. You're looking to judge." Those who are going to vote for Trump this fall, they may fall into an elite group of fascist sympathizers. Okay? Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. Maybe there's somebody who goes, "Oh, you can't say anything like that, guys. That's a bridge too far. That's something you shouldn't say. We're just worried about taxes and business interests." Let's ask this question. What did the Vichy French want? They supported Hitler during World War II, allowing for the Nazis to run roughshod all over France, killing millions of European Jews, and had plans to nuke the United States. And like most things in World War II history, there's so much context. And while I would love the nature of a 4-hour, 3-part series, Sergio, with you about this, we cannot do that. So I'll make it quick. Philippe Pétain, he was a World War I hero who became a PM for France in 1940. Pétain signs the agreement between the Nazi Party and himself so he could establish what he thought would be the best solution for France. One where they would be limited in their power of the media. They would collaborate with conservative Catholics. They would reverse many civil liberties. Why would they do that? Why did Pétain do that? Because he wanted money, power, and influence. His desire to maintain a sense of power on the world stage is what allowed for France to become a playground for Hitler's armies. His desire to maintain some sense of neutrality because he didn't want to stand up when when they were required to be strong as a country. That's what happened here. No, instead they shriveled up like a French violet. It helped fucking fuel Hitler's vision for what he called a pure nation. Adolf Hitler once said, "Root out the communists, the Marxists, the fascists, the radical lefts. They live like vermin in the confines of our country." Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. That's fucking Donald Trump. Hitler said this: "Immigrants are poisoning the blood of our nation." Wait a second. That's also Donald Trump. But the Germans and the Hitlers and the Nazis actually did say this. The Jews are like lice. They cause typhus. For shits and gigs, I'll play another one for you.
Democrats say, "Please don't call them animals. They're humans." I said, "No, they're not humans. They're not humans. They're animals."
They're not humans. Immigrants are not humans. They're animals. I'm going to play for you a piece from the most recently published Politico article.
In their book, The Divider, Trump in the White House, Peter Baker and Susan Glasser reported that Trump asked John Kelly, his chief of staff at the time, "Why can't you be like the German generals?" Trump, at various points, had grown frustrated with military officials he deemed disloyal and disobedient. Throughout the course of his presidency, Trump referred to flag officers as "my generals." According to Baker and Glasser, Kelly explained to Trump that German generals tried to kill Hitler 3 times and almost pulled it off. This correction did not move Trump to reconsider his view. No. They were totally loyal to him, the president responded.
Thoughts?
Fuck Donald Trump. Fuck Donald Trump.
Let me go and play another clip for you then.
This week, I asked Kelly about their exchange. He told me that when Trump raised the subject of German generals, Kelly responded by asking, "Do you mean Bismarck's generals?" He went on, "I mean, I knew he didn't know who Bismarck was, or about the Franco-Prussian War. I said, "Do you mean the Kaiser's generals? Surely you can't mean Hitler's generals." And he said, Yeah, Hitler's generals. I explained to him that Rommel had to commit suicide after taking part in a plot against Hitler. Kelly told me Trump was not acquainted with Rommel. Baker and Glasser also reported that Mark Milley, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, feared that Trump's Hitler-like embrace of the big lie about the election would prompt the president to seek out a Reichstag moment.
And I'm going to play one last clip for you. I call this one Dictator Don.
In recent days, he has signaled that, should he win re-election in November, he would like to govern in the manner of these dictators. He has said explicitly that he would like to be a dictator for a day on his first day back in the White House, and he has threatened to, among other things, unleash the military on radical left lunatics. One of his 4 former national security advisors, John Bolton, wrote in his memoir, "It is a close contest between Putin and Xi Jinping, who would be happiest to see Trump back in office." Military leaders have condemned Trump for possessing autocratic tendencies. At his retirement ceremony last year, Milley said, "We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or to a tyrant or dictator, and we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator. We take an oath to the Constitution, and we take an oath to the idea that is America, and we're willing to die to protect it."
So I wanted to wrap up with that clip because I think that it brings us as close to present as we can get. And I wanted to get your thoughts as we're closing out this series, Sergio, because we've kind of taken a left or right, the roundabout way of getting there. And I wanted to see what your thoughts are around this. And I wanted to ask you a couple of cheeky questions because I've said a lot of things during this episode. And I did say I was going to take the gloves off here. And I said that, at the very beginning of this, that they're Nazis, that they're snake oil salesmen, that they're, for lack of a better word, pieces of shit. But I want to ask you this question. I want to ask you 3 questions. I'm going to ask you these 3 questions, not just for yourself, but also for our listeners. And I want to ask you them in order. First, do you think we can lower the temperature on here, on what we've been talking about, on what we've been doing? Do you think we can lower the temperature?
Lower the temperature in what regards?
Our rhetoric that we use, the language that we use with each other, the language that we use around each other, the language that we use to describe the other. Do you think we can lower it?
I mean, we can always lower it, but the question is that useful in lowering the question? Because it's almost, I don't know if this sentence is racist or not, but sometimes you got to call a spade. Sure. Right? And so when people are, fascist curious or racist curious, is lowering the temperature just emboldening them more to continue to act that way?
Okay.
Or do we have to kind of come up with strong language that condemns that kind of behavior and thought process?
What would that look like to condemn that?
I mean, just being a lot more forthright when it comes to when people, are saying microaggressions, within our own day-to-day lives, within work, when, somebody says, "Oh, they're just so ghetto." Well, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by ghetto?
Right. What does that mean?
What does that mean?
Yeah.
And why are you using that word?
How do we lower the temperature?
We all get out and vote. And
see you here in 4 years.
And see Kamala in office, whether, you agree with her policies or not, but you can't have Donald Trump in the president's office again. And again, not
What's the danger? What's the danger, Sergio?
The danger of having, everything's in danger.
Sure.
If
let's talk about it.
It's, this guy loves to hang out with strongmen, with Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin, Viktor Orban, and he wants to be a fascist. He wants to be in charge. He wants to, I think, personally, to have his family be kind of their own little dynasty of running the United States and just having unlimited power, and he's being emboldened by the Supreme Court and by the alt-right within Congress to have unlimited, checks on what he's going to be able to do and not do. Yeah. And so, again, we can't have somebody like that in the presidency for another 4 years, because it will be really, really, really bad.
Last question. What, and most scary of all, if we can't lower the temperature, what happens next?
We have to find a way to really, really organize and move things forward. I think one of the things that happens is that where we live in Maryland and a lot of the more progressive states, we're going to have our own state laws that are going to be able to combat a lot of this fascist policies and Project 2024 and all that. But I think it's going to be the biggest disservice to people that are in red states, especially people of color, poor people, immigrants, that are going to really, really feel the wrath of 4 years of Trump.
Yeah. I want to end this series, our series finale here, with your last thoughts on this.
I mean,
well, second to last thoughts. I'll finish with my thoughts, and you finish with your thoughts now.
I just got really sad just thinking about it. Like,
yeah,
I don't share this too publicly, but when Obama left out of office, I was at the gym at school in grad school, and I definitely was like tearing up at Obama's farewell speech, and just like, holy fuck, like Donald Trump's gonna be the president, and what the fuck is this? And then we survived those 4 years, but it was just all the insanity that we experienced within that time, and all the things that happened. It just really shake to think what would happen if he gets elected for another 4.
Yeah, that's really well said and well thought. I'd like to give my final thoughts, if that's okay.
I'll allow it.
Okay, thank you, sir. May I have another? When does this end? How does it end? This fall, democracy is on the line. The folks who would make up the Redoubt and the communities like it throughout the country want to make it their fantasies into the theocracy for all of us. They want to make that into reality. I'll finish with this little flurry, if that's okay. Sinclair Lewis is attributed of having said this thing: when fascism comes to America, it will be wrapped in a flag and carrying a cross. We are a tipping point, Sergio. We are a tipping point. Cody, Doug, and the folks that were out, and most critically, Trump, wouldn't have it any other way. And that is the scariest part for me, is that they wouldn't have it any other way. I think, personally, there is a place for us who are willing to take a look at our everyday and imagine a world where we aren't saying to each other, "You're the problem. You're the problem." I hope that is the place that we all can arrive to. But until we get to that point, and I hope it's this election, I really do, because if not, you're not going to have that choice. Listeners, thank you for listening to another episode at The Extremes. A programming note: we will be back after the election. There will be...
Maybe. The Gestapo might be after us.
But if those people don't show up, we will be back to talk about the, I'm sure it won't be, conspiracy theories that come after the election. So... It was rigged. If you're interested, you can join us. If you have anything you want to hear more about, folks, corrections is something we've said, or you just want to join the conversation, please reach out to us on Twitter at The Extremes Pod. Check the show notes. Until next time, beloved.
Educate yourself, bro.
The answers, if you feel it, put your hands up in front of surveillance cameras, okay? I don't take the buffet for granted. Make you understand it when you see me licking my plate.